just about every city now, there's like one independent dealer,
Yes.
maybe two independent dealers that are like, we're going to be the used EV shop, right? And they are crushing it.
Welcome to the Matador Buscast. Tune in for everything you need to know to stay in the know regarding the automotive industry. Here's your host, Jason Harris.
Hey, what's going on, Podcast Nation? It is Jason Harris here, and thank you for joining me on another episode of the Matador Buscast. Buscast. Yeah, Buscast. I like that. I've done podcasts in planes, trains, automobiles, and yachts, and I've yet to ever do one in a bus, but here we are. We're going to do it in a bus. This is going to be a lot of fun, guys. I really appreciate you guys, by the way, taking the time to come jam with me today. We get to talk
in your
about-
bus.
In the bus.
I heard next year it's going to be a blimp cast, though.
It's going to be an electric blimp cast. That's what it's going to be. Hey, so we're going to talk everything we want to talk about EV. So, you know what? Before we kind of get into our conversation today, let's take a moment to kind of introduce yourselves, and let's start with an origin story. You know, excuse me. Because I don't think anybody just wakes up one day and goes, automotive. Yeah, that's where I'm going to go spend my career. So let's start with that. Just introduce yourself and how you got started in the business.
I'm happy to go first. So I did not wake up and say, I want to be an automotive.
What? Wait, you didn't?
I did not.
Oh my gosh.
I did not. But here I am. And automotive is the only professional space I've ever worked in. So I went to undergrad for business and marketing, and I loved the data side of it.
Mm-hmm.
So I was a little intimidated to move into sales, where I really loved the marketing research part of it, though. So I worked for a small startup out of school doing market research projects. And this is going to make me sound like an absolute dinosaur, but this is the best part of the story. We were doing surveys. We were doing a number of surveys for dealerships who hired us to send paper surveys out to the people who had recently bought vehicles with $1 stapled to it yes. Mm-hmm.
Not quarters, but
Not
a
a dollar, a paper dollar. We would get the surveys back. We'd 10 key in the information,
Oh my gosh.
and then crunch all of this information in detail. And the dealers loved it, to the point where then we developed a customer relationship management software. A DMS provider purchased it, and data. I've always been in auto in some way, shape, or form involved with data.
So you got into your skin.
It did.
And you're in, right?
I'm in.
I just love what just happened there. Like, instead of yada, 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 you went data.
Data.
That, I'm just going to use that from now on.
You
It's
want-
just so
feel free.
good.
Uh-huh.
So
Sounds
good.
awesome,
Yeah.
right? All right, origin story.
My name is Scott Case. I'm CEO and co-founder of Recurrent. And my origin story, I guess we'll get into what that is, but my origin story. So I've been in software and technology, and then energy efficiency, actually residential energy efficiency, helping people make their houses more energy efficient for 10 years. And then kind of got out of that. And after a company was acquired, and I was like, oh, what's my next way of chipping away at the climate problem?
Mm-hmm.
And like, obviously we haven't solved it, you know? So I was like, I kind of picked my head up in 2019. I'm like, this is weird. There's batteries driving everywhere on the roads now. Like, that wasn't the case 10 years ago. So I was like, kind of just sat down. I was like, oh, okay, well, I know a lot about energy data from the last 10 years, and I'm gonna give this a shot. Let's see what's going on here with electric cars, and where's the puck going? You know,
Yes.
that needs to exist that doesn't already. But I have to say, I think I was always sort of headed towards auto, because I always used to love negotiating with car dealers over, like, as a customer. Like, I would actually go and do that for friends because I loved it so much. So I don't think I made a lot.
You know, we have a term for that in our industry.
Whoa, boy, what is it?
Lot lawyer.
Lot lawyer. I would wear the sales reps out, because I was just like, I thought it was a game. It was super fun, you know. Anyway, so I've been heading to this industry for a long time.
That's very cool. You know, it's funny. It's a lot of people ask me, like, how did you get into cars? You know what? Funny thing, I don't think I've ever shared this. Me and my dad used to play this game. We used to road trip like a lot. And my dad loved driving at night because less traffic, and I don't know, the kids aren't screaming as much in the background, right? And we'd play this game when the two of us were up, where we would have to guess the car based on its headlights. And as it got closer and closer and closer, so the farther away you could guess it, the more points you got. And, the closer it was, fewer points and stuff like that. So, I mean, I could call out a car just by its silhouette of its headlights for years. I don't think I can do it anymore. But, but it's a passion, and it's something you just kind of get into it, and you fall in love with it. And electric vehicles, man, I am so for it right now. I put my deposit
It's a whole new set of headlights. First
It's
of
a whole
all,
new. Oh, and
the
really
headlights are really cool looking.
Really
now.
looking.
Yeah.
I saw. I actually put an order in for a Rivian R1S.
Yeah.
It's amazing. For me, it checked off every single box that I could ever want in a single vehicle. 800 horsepower, 0 to 60 in 3 seconds, and that's with the entire family in the car. Come on, how awesome is that, right? Amazing off-road capabilities, 4 separate motors, total control of torque and spin and everything from every single wheel, and room for the entire family. I mean, come on, it's amazing. It really is. Now, the coolest thing about Rivian I found so far, and I think the entire industry can learn a lot from it, is how they've stayed connected with me since I put a deposit in. So I don't get like a once every few months, like, hey, this is what's going on. I get a daily notification from them. They have this amazing thing called Rivian Stories, and it's probably going to be a year and a half before I see this thing, but I'm already feeling insanely connected to the brand. I think there's so much to kind of unfold and unpack there,
I have a pre-reservation right now for an F-150 Lightning and a Volvo EX90, and you know how much I've heard from both of those dealers?
Yeah.
Nothing.
Exactly. Isn't it amazing?
Yeah.
I just think so. Look, I think there's a lot to be said, about EVs because of the culture that can be built around them. But let's start with that. What are both you guys' kind of first experience of an EV?
I'll start. Yeah. So I lived in Seattle for 15 years. No garage, no driveway, no off-street parking on my side of the street. So I was not an early adopter EV driver, right? I actually moved a year and a half ago to Tacoma, Washington, and I have a garage for the first time since high school. And so I went out, we got a Volkswagen ID4, great car, super fun car to drive. And I mean, just I don't know. You know what my first thing was that really sticks out? How smug I felt driving past the gas station with $6 a gallon gas. And every time, I just so smug. It's ridiculous.
Well, my first EV experience, Jason, and I should actually say, you know what? I got so excited about sharing my origin story. I don't even think I told anyone my name.
Oopsies. I think you can fix that in post, right? It'll be like, it'll be right down here on the screen.
Yes.
Kirsten Von Busch.
Yes, we'll
experience.
put Kirsten right down the bottom.
All excited about my dollar story that I was like, oh yeah, by the way, Kirsten Von Busch, I work at Experian. My first EV experience though was a date night with my husband, pre-kids. So, I mean, several years ago. Teslas were just coming out, and we had this reservation for dinner, and then we were going to a show afterwards. So, I mean, we had a timeline here we had to operate within, and they had 3 Teslas in front of this restaurant, and they were offering free test drives.
Oh, at the restaurant.
Yeah. So, and I mean, what did you have to do? Provide them your contact information, of course, right? But we had this reservation and we were meeting another couple. So I was like, no, you really want to do this? Go ahead, go test drive it. He's gone forever.
It's gone.
I know. I was like, well, you didn't really want to eat before the show, did you? Because I was like, we had a reservation. We had to sit down. We got tickets. We had to the show. We got to go. And he was gone forever. He loved this. So he has been lobbying for an electric vehicle ever since. We haven't found quite the right fit yet, just because he can't quite narrow it down and land on one. But I will tell you that we redid our driveway. I saw 2 of them over the holidays, and I was like, I'm lobbying there. When we redid our driveway last year, though, we had it reinforced for the extra weight because we are definitely looking for an SUV.
Wow, there you go.
That is something.
There we go.
Yes,
yeah,
yes.
Yeah. Wow. For the record, you do not have to pave your driveway, especially if you want to get an EV.
Not in the least.
Good.
Not in the least. This was purely superficial. We were doing it anyway. Yeah.
Well, let's talk about let's go consumer adoption. there's a lot of really, really big, bold statements being made right now around EV. There are some OEMs that have some monster statements that are not that far from here of expectations. By this year, we're going to be 100% EV. By this year, all right, this is how many vehicles are going to be on the road, and it's some seriously large numbers. I don't know. What do you guys kind of forecast right now?
Yeah, well, Experian, we don't provide an actual forecast, but I can tell you what the data does say.
Yes, let's do it.
So from a vehicles and operations standpoint, right now for purely electric vehicles, there's about 1% of vehicles in operation that are electric. Okay? So from a comparison standpoint, there's over 280 million vehicles, cars and light duty trucks in operation. Okay. So, 1%, you're like, well, that's not a whole heck of a lot. From a registration standpoint, that's why everyone is so excited about this. Because if we look at new retail registrations for the last rolling 12 months, EVs have exceeded 5% for straight electric vehicles. And when you layer on then hybrids and that as well, the percentage only grows. So from a adoption perspective, people are predicting that 5% is really the tipping point for rapid adoption and just mass adoption for the market.
That's cool. That's cool. I think the numbers are only going to go up. What are you seeing right now?
Well, and Ben, by the way, there's big changes, differences regionally. So in California, that same period, 25% over the last 12 months.
Wow.
Registrations.
Yeah, I mean, California as a whole has 40% of the electric vehicle registrations, just new retail.
Yeah.
LA alone, that DMA represents 15% of all new retail EV registrations across the U.S. It's huge.
So what I think is interesting is that we've clearly, in all the survey data and all the sort of market research, you all have done a ton, we have hit a point where the majority of Americans now say, I'll consider an EV for my next car, or my next car will be an electric car, right? So we've clearly gotten into mainstream buyers for new EVs.
Yes.
The story's a little different on used EVs. And I think that's what there's a really some interesting stuff we're going to get into on how to get the mainstream customer get comfortable with a pre-owned EV, because there's a different set of kind of concerns that come with that. But on the new side, like, it's full steam ahead. I will say we don't do forecasts either, but we're the peanut gallery for people that do forecasts. And so we've looked at, every single forecast that's out there, Boston Consulting Group, Bloomberg New Energy. If you look at all their forecasts, like year after year after year, they're systematically too low. Every year they take the same model and they run it, and magically it's way higher than it was before, right? And so we're just blowing past all these things. When we exited the year for battery electric and plug-in hybrids, which I count as electric cars, because like you barely ever get gas in them anyway. Basically, most people drive 30 miles, a day. And so you total those together, the numbers for December were 9% of all registrations for plug-in cars with plugs, and that is just like that's the baseline for 2023. So we're going to blow past the expert forecast again this year. So I can't wait to see BCG do their thing again, So anyway, but what about, we just make fun of other people's forecasts, we don't do our
That's
own.
what you get to do, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's our job.
Well, let's go down that rabbit hole of pre-owned EVs, because honestly, maybe this is the dealer principal coming out in me. I'd be excited, because I think there's such an opportunity to create a niche. Here's the thing I find with a lot of used car departments, and I've consulted with many dealerships across the country, is a lot of these used car departments suffer from an identity crisis. They don't know what they are. They're used car sedans and used trucks and used vans and used SUVs, and they just have a mishmash of everything. But I think there's some amazing used car operators out there that are getting wind of this, and I've already seen it, right? Where it's like, but these guys already understood this, right? They knew that they were going to be the number one used minivan, all right, spot. So instead of going there and having 7 pre-owned minivans to choose from, they have 70 minivans to choose from. And I already seen some of these big used car players look at it the exact same way. If I'm going to go EV, why have one model, why, when I could have 45, to choose from? But I think it's an education that kind of goes along with it, because there's still that consumer fear. Yeah, right. Range anxiety is a big thing. And then just how do pre-owned EVs really stack up, and it's like no one I think is really kind of telling the story, but I'd love to get you guys' perspective.
Well, let me start with just saying, so I started the company Recurrent 3 years ago because I realized people were asking different questions for a used EV than they ever did for a used combustion engine. And you've had an iPhone long enough, probably several.
Yes.
The battery wears down.
Almost
It means you can't talk all day. Literally, I have my phone actually plugged into your bus right now because I wasn't going to make it through the rest of the day. And so we realized people were asking these questions like, how's the battery? How far will I be able to go? How will that change in winter versus summer? I've heard batteries don't hold up in the winter. How's it going to change over the course of time? All these questions that dealers are like deer in headlights when a customer walks in. They're afraid to know less about the product than their customer does, And so so we realized this is a great opportunity to kind of come in and answer those questions with, there's Experian's a great example. There's a rich tradition of third-party valuation services out there that help people sort of answer those questions. This is a huge purchase for most people, right?
Yes,
and so you want to de-risk that, right? And we realized that the battery was this huge risk and just thing looming in people's heads that is not there for the new EVs, right? But it is for the used EVs. So that's where we sort of went down the path of and produced we call a recurrent report that basically just gets into it, how's the battery? How far does that mean I can go? How does that different in my weather versus a different climate? All those questions are what we sort of lined up for the buyer.
And from the experience standpoint, that's exactly why we created the alliance with Recurrent.
Right. Ta-da! We're working together now.
Because they have this rich insight and they're able to provide that confidence to both the dealer as well as the consumer about that pre-owned electric vehicle. And ultimately, we want the dealer to be able to buy and sell pre-owned EVs with confidence. And that's where putting the Recurrent battery report with the auto check report, because an electric vehicle is still a vehicle. Yeah. And you still want to know, was it in an accident? Does it have damage? Does it have a title brand? All of that insight. But you have to know about the battery health for an electric vehicle. So we needed to really have that additional information appended to
Absolutely.
The existing traditional vehicle history report to give that full, complete picture for the used electric vehicle buyer.
And I think it's amazing. I think it's amazing you guys are doing that. The consumer confidence and the dealer confidence will really be something else. And I don't think dealers should be afraid of this. Backed up with that type of data. Yeah. All right. There are a lot of opportunities in EVs. Have you seen what the margins on an extended warranty on an pre-owned EV is? As a dealer, that makes me quite happy. And warranty adoption. So far, I know that there's not a lot, but the warranty adoption on pre-owned EVs is insanely high. It makes sense.
What's nuts, though, is that I'm pretty sure nearly all of those warranties exclude the high voltage battery because no one has data on how the high voltage batteries are going.
Yes.
So there may be one who's starting to do that, but
well, they're starting to.
Yeah, they're starting to cover the battery.
I think it's really cool. Yeah. And I think combined with what you guys are doing, and as we start to grow and the warranty industry kind of catches up with it, we're removing so much of the fear out of it. But then I still think there's a monster education element.
Yeah. You're totally right. And most for everybody out there, EV batteries hold up better than iPhones, right? Just first of all, they're holding up better than what people expect them to. And so there's not actually it's not they're all failing within a couple of years. And although that was what everyone was expecting at the beginning for the first, generation. But most of what we're doing is not that's going to fail. It's more okay, the EPA range on that car was 260 miles, right? That's, by the way, wrong all the time on day one. They're never accurate, right? Even at the beginning. And then over time, it wears down based on factors like weather, or factors like, was it charged in DC fast charging all the time, or like how did people did they run it all the way down to zero and all the way back up? All these different factors that, like, frankly didn't matter for combustion engine cars, but now they actually do. So, and the difference can be not, it's like, typically it's not like, oh, this battery's dead and this other one's not, but the EPA was 260 miles. One car with same make, model, year, trim, and odometer could be like 240 miles max range or 220. They're both fine, but people are going to want to pay more for the 240 than the 220. And so that's what we're helping them figure out.
It's funny is, like, I think of this, and I love diesel engines. And, when I think of big commercial trucks, when I first started in the industry, that's where I kind of cut my teeth. I did a lot of commercial business. And, commercial trucks with those diesel engines, they don't ask you how many miles are on it. They want to know how many hours of operations. All right, it was, because the truck could have 20,000 miles, but depending on where it was and how it was being used, it could have 60,000 hours on the thing because it never got turned off, And it's like, to me, it doesn't seem to be much different then than what it is now. Again, it's just a different level of education.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So let's get into actually, I want to get into range anxiety.
All right.
I want to get into range anxiety,
Let's do
right?
this.
Because like I think everybody has it, and I think one of the things that maybe kind of drew me to the Rivian product was their push to put EV charging stations in very obscure outdoor places. Like, they're like, okay, this is going to be an off-road vehicle. We want people to go out and off-road. So they have these adventure, I think they call them adventure stations.
Yeah, they do, yeah.
Right?
They're in like trailheads and stuff like that.
They're like trailheads and stuff like that. And, some of them are even built on some solar power systems and stuff. And like, it is really, really cool what these companies have done. But what I think was even cooler when I really kind of dissect, like, okay, well, that's cool, but why does it make me feel cool is that they're building a brand. And I think dealers, have a major opportunity here to build a brand around pre-owned EV and own it, because no one's done it yet.
Mm-hmm.
There are in just about every city now, there's like one independent dealer, maybe two independent dealers that are like, we're going to be the used EV shop, right? And they are crushing it. Mm-hmm. They are. Yes. They are because they know, like, they know how to look at we're working with a lot of them already, and they know, I just look at this, like, we help. I mean, thanks for buying and selling with confidence. That's a really good point. Like, we're helping our dealers understand what they're getting, because they don't know otherwise either, and then turn around and explain that to their customers, right? And so the customer experience is better, and the dealer isn't buying any sort of dogs, basically.
Yeah.
But the indies that are sort of out there, like going all EV, there's room for that, like, in almost every city, and then they're starting to pop up in suburbs and everything like that, exactly where the willingness to pay for, people are like shifting over that fuel type preference is. So I don't think it's long before this is like 5% to 10% of every dealer's inventory, pretty much no matter where you are, and that all of a sudden is like, it's a big deal to pay off, to pay attention to.
100%, and it's a commitment, right? Like, my staff needs to be educated.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
They don't need just to know, if we're a Nissan dealership, they don't just need to know about the Nissan Leaf, all right, or the Aria. They need to know everything about Cadillac's lineup, and they need to know everything about GM's and Ford's lineup, and so yeah, it's an education, it's a process. Look, guys, I know we're getting towards the tail end of our conversation today, and I love this partnership, because it's that next real big step to creating confidence in a niche market that I just think is just going to continue to grow and just be mainstream. So very, very excited that you guys have partnered up. Makes me happy. But for everyone out there watching and listening right now who would maybe love to connect with you guys or follow on your journey, or even learn a little bit more about this partnership, what's the best way to do so?
Yeah, well, we just launched this, right? So we just had this announcement at NADA, and we'll be having a lot more information coming out. So I would say the best way for additional detail, first and foremost, is to follow us on social media, right? ExperionAutomotive.com. And we will be putting information out there that will direct them to the Experian Automotive site, where someone can contact us for additional information, just as a whole. And then, of course, fairly active on social media, where if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to have them reach out, and I can get them direct to the right place as well.
Awesome.
If you want to nerd out on battery stuff, like I do that all day long. So yeah, it's recurrentauto.com is our site. But yeah, I think like we're just really excited to be working with Experian, because like just the network of dealers that are out there that already have auto check in place that this just ends up as a supplement to is like just amazing. So yeah, this is going to be cool.
It is going to be very cool. Very cool. I think we're definitely going to have some follow up after this. I mean, I know this is just the start of a beautiful relationship for you guys. So we're definitely going to have some follow-up. Hey, thank you so much, guys, for taking the time to jam with me today. This has been a lot of fun.
Thank you so much for having us. We're so excited about this. We'll chat in the future.
Absolutely.
You take care.
Thanks.
Thanks for tuning in to the Matador Podcast with your host, Jason Harris. Be sure to check out the full podcast library at matador.ai to stay in the know. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe.